The HOA president just tried to evict me from my own house at 6:30 a.m. There I was, still smelling like diesel and sweat from an all-night hospital generator repair, when Victoria Langford shoved a crisp eviction notice into my calloused hands with her acrylic claws clicking like a countdown. 30 days to vacate, sweetie, she purred in that butter wouldn't melt voice, her white Mercedes idling behind her like a throne on wheels. Don't take it personally. It's for the good of Evergreen Terrace. Personally? Lady, you just signed your own warrant in $400 yoga pants. I'm Connor Riley, Con to anyone who actually knows me. 52, licensed electrician for 30 years, freshly divorced from a woman who traded my honest paycheck for some country club fantasy. When the settlement check cleared, I did what any sane guy would. Bought a solid 1970s ranch house in Evergreen Terrace with cold, hard cash. No mortgage, no drama, just 3 bedrooms, a corner lot, and the sweet smell of paid-off freedom. For 2 glorious years life was simple. Kids rode bikes without fear. Mrs. Patel next door dropped off fresh samosas. The Garcia family across the street invited me to every backyard barbecue. Working families minding their own business in a quiet American suburb. Paradise. Then Victoria Langford rolled in like a storm in designer sneakers. She'd fled some upscale enclave after her husband's construction empire collapsed in a fraud scandal. 5'4" of blonde perfection that never seemed to sweat, always dressed for yoga classes she never attended, driving that gleaming Mercedes with the vanity plate Vicky 1, announcing her arrival louder than any siren. The neighborhood had been dealing with drainage issues, so when the emergency HOA meeting happened most blue-collar folks were at work. Victoria volunteered as president. Nobody else wanted the unpaid headache. Boom. Overnight dictator in Lululemon. The harassment started small, the way these things always do. Mrs. Patel got fined for culturally inappropriate garden statues. The Garcia's kids earned citations for sidewalk chalk, defacing common property, but I became her special project. 3 months into her reign, I found a bright orange violation sticker plastered on my front door like cheap wallpaper. My tool shed, built in 1974, sturdy as the day it was raised, was suddenly an unapproved structure. Fine. $175. Deadline 30 days. That evening I knocked on her door. Vanilla candles and fake politeness hit me first. She answered in full makeup at 8 p.m., smile painted on like a mask. Oh, Connor, darling, I was wondering when you'd stop by. I kept my voice even. This shed predates your HOA by 49 years. How is it suddenly illegal? Her laugh tinkled like wind chimes in a tornado. Rules are rules, sweetie. It doesn't meet current community standards. Sweetie. That word could curdle milk. What standards? Nobody voted on shed regulations. The board decides what's best for property values, she said, examining her nails. I'm sure a handyman like you can handle a simple demolition. Handyman. Not electrician. Not licensed professional with 30 years of credentials. Handyman. Like my work didn't pay her mortgage. And if I refuse? Her smile stretched wider. Oh, Connor, you don't want to test that. I have resources you couldn't dream of. The door clicked shut with the finality of a jail cell. Standing in my driveway, violation notice crumpled in my fist, I realized this wasn't about sheds. This was about power. Victoria Langford had chosen me as her guinea pig to see how far she could push before I snapped. What she didn't know was electricians don't snap. We troubleshoot. We trace every wire back to the source and flip the breaker that ends the problem permanently. The war had just begun. That weekend I tore down 20 feet of perfectly good shed I'd rebuilt myself after the last storm. The scent of aged cedar filled my garage while I stacked every usable board like a man saving evidence. Monday morning I was loading my work van when her Mercedes glided down the street like a shark smelling blood. Victoria stepped out in full yoga pants superiority, clipboard in hand. Problem solved, I called, wiping sawdust off my palms. She circled the property like a real estate inspector from hell, designer sneakers crunching gravel. Then she stopped at the remaining backyard section nobody could even see from the street. This won't suffice. Non-compliant materials. I blinked. I removed what you cited. Cedar wasn't on the approved list. The Architectural Review Board established new standards last week. She handed me another violation, thicker paper, higher price tag. Full removal. Fine doubled to $350. Here's what my divorce taught me. When someone starts inventing rules on the fly, you document everything. So that night I drove to the county recorder's office. 3 hours of dusty files later I found gold. The original covenants clearly stated pre-existing structures were grandfathered. 47 pages of notarized proof that Victoria was either lying or illiterate. I photocopied every sheet. The machine's hum sounded like sweet revenge. Tuesday's HOA meeting felt like stepping into a cage match under fluorescent lights. 15 neighbors in squeaky folding chairs. I laid my folder on the table. Before we start, let's discuss these shed violations. Victoria's smile twitched. The board's decision stands, Connor. Based on what? Your own filed covenants protect grandfathered structures. Mrs. Patel leaned forward. Phones came out. Victoria barely glanced at my papers. Those are technicalities. The clause expired with our updated standards. Show me where it says that. It's implied. Implied? You're fining me $350 on an implication. The room went graveyard quiet except for the buzzing lights. Connor, she sighed like a kindergarten teacher dealing with a tantrum. Emotional outbursts won't change policy. I slapped cash on the table. I want copies of every bylaw, every meeting minute, every financial record. Public information, right? Certainly. $50 administrative fee. I paid. She promised delivery. 2 weeks later the package arrived. 17 pages of obviously doctored documents with missing sections and contradictory wording. A toddler could spot the tampering. But here's the dark comedy. Victoria had accidentally spilled her latte across my original evidence during the meeting. Oh my goodness, how clumsy of me! She gasped while my hours of research turned into coffee soup. Too bad I'd made duplicates. Now I also had proof of her destroying homeowner documents in an official meeting. 2 violations for the price of 1 latte. Standing in my kitchen that night, staring at her pathetic forgery job, I realized the truth. This wasn't about sheds or standards. This was control. Victoria Langford was terrified of losing her little kingdom, and I was the peasant who dared question the queen. Game on. 2 weeks later she escalated. I woke to a neon yellow ticket on my work van like some sick birthday card. Commercial vehicle overnight parking. $225 fine plus $50 daily until removed. My plain Ford Transit with Riley Electric on the side had sat in the same spot for 2 years without bothering a soul. Signed by Victoria Langford at 6:47 a.m. The woman was stalking my street before most people hit snooze. I called the number. She picked up on the first ring. Evergreen Terrace HOA President Langford speaking. It's Con. What's this commercial vehicle nonsense? Oh, Connor, darling. Emergency board meeting last night. Commercial vehicles attract undesirable elements. Undesirable? I'm an electrician, not a drug cartel. New safety standards, sweetie. 24 hours to relocate or penalties double. My van held 15 grand in specialized tools, my entire livelihood. Insurance only covered them when parked on my own property. Street parking 8 blocks away? In a neighborhood where tool theft was its own sport? I spent the afternoon at the public library. State law explicitly protects licensed trade vehicles under 10,000 pounds on owner property. Boom. But the real gift? In my documentation photos of her driveway I spotted her Mercedes covered in Langford Luxury Homes decals, giant commercial advertising parked overnight in a residential zone every single night. The hypocrisy was so thick you could spread it on toast. Next morning I heard the clank of metal. Some guy in a reflective vest was booting my van right in my own driveway. Victoria supervised like a general. Morning, Connor. I did warn you about the deadline. I hit record on my phone. You're booting a vehicle on private property? Community safety requires enforcement, she announced to the camera with her politician smile. I called the sheriff. Deputy Morales arrived, took one look and burst out laughing so hard he had to wipe tears. Ma'am, Booting a car on private property without a court order is theft. Straight up theft. Victoria's face cycled through every shade of rage. The boot came off faster than a bad perm. As they fled, Morales slipped me his card. Document everything. This lady's writing her own indictment. That night, reviewing footage, one thing was crystal clear. Victoria wasn't just desperate. She was getting sloppy. And sloppy gets caught. Just when I thought she'd learned her lesson, Victoria went nuclear. 3 weeks later, an envelope thick enough to stop a bullet appeared under my door. Premium paper. Embossed letterhead screaming money. Property value depreciation assessment. According to this masterpiece, a professional appraiser had determined my humble ranch was dragging down neighborhood equity by 30 grand. The signature? Richard Langford, her brother-in-law, certified property evaluator. His solution? Pay a $48,500 compensation fee, or let Langford Luxury Homes buy my house for a fire sale $175,000, well below last year's $290,000 appraisal. Move-out clause 10 days. I called my divorce attorney, Rebecca Torres. Her laugh nearly cracked the phone. Connor, this is either the dumbest fraud attempt in legal history or performance art. HOAs can't slap subjective assessments without votes and proof. This is extortion in yoga pants. She sent a real appraiser, James Morales, no relation to the deputy. 3 hours of measurements later, his report arrived. My recent electrical upgrades had actually boosted neighborhood values by $16,000. Bonus discovery? Richard Langford wasn't licensed to appraise a lemonade stand. Public records showed Langford Luxury Homes had listed every single house that mysteriously sold after HOA harassment. The pattern was beautiful in its evil. Terrorize, force cheap sale, flip for profit, pocket the difference. Classic suburban racketeering. Monday's emergency meeting smelled like desperation and cheap air freshener. Victoria waved the fake assessment like a victory flag. We must protect everyone's investment. I stood, laying the real report down. Before we talk investments, let's discuss how your brother-in-law isn't licensed anywhere in this state. Her smile cracked. Phone started recording. And how every harassed homeowner ended up listing exclusively with your company. Remarkable coincidence. Instead of backing down, she doubled down. This neighborhood will not be held hostage by one selfish man. Mrs. Patel's voice cut through. Are you threatening forced relocation? Victoria snarled, all pretense gone. I'm protecting property values. Walking out, neighbors started sharing their own horror stories. This wasn't bad governance. This was organized crime wearing athleisure. The rail break came from public financial records. Rebecca had tipped me. HOAs are quasi-governmental, books are open. The county clerk handed me folders that made my stomach drop. $132,000 vanished. Landscaping contracts to her sister's catering company for lawns that barely existed. Snow removal for a region that saw 2 flurries a year. Security cameras that no one had ever seen. Every shell company traced back to the Langford family tree. That night the full picture clicked. Every bogus fine, every forced sale, every harassment campaign funneled cash into her private empire. She turned our HOA into a money laundering machine. Federal mail fraud, wire fraud, RICO territory. I built the team quietly. Rebecca for law. Elena Vasquez from the state AG's white-collar unit. Troy from Channel 7 who lived for suburban scandals. Patricia the forensic accountant who traced the money like a bloodhound. Mrs. Patel became our neighborhood intelligence chief. 18 months of saved notices and photos. The Garcias added testimony of threats against immigrant families. We installed hidden cameras. We planned the trap. I would pretend to surrender at a community meeting, let Victoria gloat, and let the feds serve subpoenas on camera. Overconfident tyrants always confess when they think they've won. But Victoria sensed the noose tightening. 3 days before the meeting, my basement became an indoor swimming pool. Sprinkler valves slashed, water running for hours. 15 grand in ruined tools and wiring. Cameras caught 2 guys in hoodies, trucks at peak landscaping. Her nephew's phantom $47,000 a year snow removal company. Next morning all 4 van tires were slashed. Then a fake complaint to the state licensing board accused me of endangering hospital patients. License suspended pending investigation. Anonymous domestic violence tip against me. Restraining order that literally trapped me in my own neighborhood. Her house blocked the only exit. Finally the lawsuit. $500,000 in defamation. Motion for emergency asset seizure to freeze my accounts and lien my house. The noose was professional. But every new crime just added another count to her federal indictment. Tuesday evening the community center was packed. 89 residents in squeaky chairs, smelling of popcorn and anticipation. Victoria arrived like royalty, briefcase gleaming, lawyer in tow. "We're here to resolve this disruptive situation peacefully," she announced, voice dripping triumph. I sat in front, shoulders slumped, playing the defeated man. "You're right, Victoria. Time to end this." I unfolded the document. Victoria Langford, you are hereby served with a federal subpoena for mail fraud, wire fraud, embezzlement and racketeering under RICO. The room froze. Federal agents stepped forward, badges flashing. "Victoria Langford, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and operating a criminal enterprise." Chaos. Gasps. Phones recording. Victoria shrieked. "This is ridiculous. I'm the victim." Troy shoved a mic in her face. "How do you explain $800,000 siphoned to your family's shell companies?" Elena projected bank records on the wall. "Mrs. Patel stood. You tried to steal every home you harassed." Handcuffs clicked. As they led her away, the room erupted in applause, 2 years of fear finally breaking. 6 months later, the verdict landed like sweet justice. Victoria pleaded guilty to 14 federal counts. 4 years in prison, $2.4 million restitution, lifetime HOA ban. Her whole network, brother-in-law, nephew, sister, got matching orange jumpsuits. My license was reinstated with a commendation. The hospital renewed my contract with a raise. Basement repairs came from her frozen assets, better equipment than before. Mrs. Patel became HOA president. Dues dropped to $35 for real services. Board meetings now featured cookies instead of corruption. The Garcias threw monthly block parties where kids drew hopscotch without fear. Property values rose 23% once word spread we were crime-free. Our story sparked statewide HOA reform, the Homeowner Protection Act. I testified. They nicknamed it Riley's Law. The restitution funded legal aid scholarships for future victims. And me? I got my life back. Started dating again. Rebecca and I took it slow, built something real after surviving the same war. We're engaged now. Every morning I wake up in my paid-off house in a neighborhood that feels like home again. The American dream defended by ordinary people who refuse to roll over. So here's my question for you. Was I wrong for fighting the system tooth and nail? Or was Victoria Langford the real criminal who turned community standards into her personal ATM? Drop your verdict below. Was the HOA president just doing her job? Or did justice finally serve the ultimate Karen exactly what she deserved? Let's hear it.